I should have known something was wrong the moment Tara suggested we go to her parents' house for dinner. She hadn't wanted to spend time with her family in months, always making excuses about being too busy or too tired. Every weekend for the past 4 months, when her mother would call and invite us over, Tara would create elaborate reasons why we couldn't make it. Work deadlines, prior commitments, a headache, car trouble. The excuses varied, but the result was always the same. We stayed home, or more accurately, she went out while I stayed home. But that Tuesday afternoon in late October, everything changed. She came home from work at her usual time, around 6:30, but there was something different about her energy, a forced brightness in her voice that immediately set off alarm bells in my head. She dropped her bag by the door, kicked off her heels, and before even changing out of her work clothes, she announced we were having dinner with everyone on Saturday. "It'll be nice," she said, not quite meeting my eyes as she moved past me toward the kitchen. "We haven't seen them in a while. Mom really wants us to come. I told her we'd be there." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been pretending to work on a project proposal. "You already said yes? Without asking me first?" She turned, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt? Anxiety? It was gone before I could identify it. "I didn't think you'd mind. It's just family dinner. We used to do it all the time." "We used to do a lot of things all the time," I said quietly. She ignored that comment, pulling out her phone and scrolling through something that apparently required her complete attention. The conversation was over as far as she was concerned. I didn't argue. I never did anymore. Our marriage had become a minefield where every word I spoke could detonate something unpredictable. Questions were met with defensiveness. Observations were twisted into accusations. Any attempt at genuine connection was deflected or dismissed, so I just nodded, went back to my laptop, and pretended to work while my mind raced through possibilities. Why now? Why suddenly, after months of avoiding her family, was she insisting we go to this dinner? What had changed? The truth is, I'd been collecting evidence for 3 months. 3 months, 1 week, and 4 days, to be exact. I could tell you the precise moment this all started, down to the hour and minute, because that moment was seared into my memory like a brand. It was the moment my marriage died, even though it would take several more months for the body to grow cold. I remember every detail of that Thursday evening in August. The heat wave that had settled over the city, making our air conditioning work overtime. The way the kitchen smelled like the garlic and tomatoes I was using to make pasta sauce. The way my hands moved automatically through the familiar motions of cooking, while my mind wandered to work problems, weekend plans, mundane thoughts that fill the quiet moments of domestic life. Tara had gone upstairs to shower after getting home from work. I heard the water running through the old pipes, heard her singing something off-key. Normal. Everything was completely normal, until her phone lit up on the kitchen counter. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. I wasn't trying to spy. I wasn't being suspicious. I was literally standing right next to it, stirring sauce, when the screen illuminated with a message preview. Just a single line of text, but it was enough to stop my heart. "Tell him I'm at my sister's again. He believes anything. Unknown number." My hand froze on the wooden spoon I was using. I stared at those words, reading them over and over, my brain struggling to process what they meant, even though the meaning was crystal clear. Someone was telling my wife to lie to me about being at her sister's house, and the comment about me believing anything felt like a knife between my ribs. The phone screen went dark again after a few seconds, returning to the lock screen photo of us from our honeymoon in Costa Rica. Young, smiling, in love, people who no longer existed. I stood there in that kitchen for what felt like an hour, but was probably only a minute, listening to Tara's muffled singing from upstairs, the pasta water starting to boil over, the sauce beginning to stick to the bottom of the pan. The whole scene felt surreal, like I'd stepped sideways into an alternate reality where my wife was a stranger and my marriage was a lie. Every instinct in my body screamed to march upstairs, throw open that bathroom door, and demand answers. To confront her immediately while the evidence was fresh, while I still had the moral high ground of righteous anger. To force the truth out of her before she had time to prepare lies. But something stopped me. Maybe it was pride. The humiliating thought that if I confronted her now, she'd just deny everything, and I'd be left looking paranoid and controlling. Maybe it was fear. The terror of hearing her confirm what that message implied, of having to face the reality of betrayal head-on. Maybe it was the desperate need to know the full truth before making any decisions, to understand the complete scope of what was happening. Or maybe it was the cold, calculated part of my brain that whispered, if you react now, she'll just lie better. She'll delete messages. She'll be more careful. You'll never know the whole truth. So instead of confronting her, I finished making dinner. I stirred the sauce that had started to burn. I drained the pasta. I set the table with our everyday dishes, the ones with the small chip on the rim that we kept meaning to replace, but never did. I poured wine into glasses. I did all the normal domestic things that a husband does when his wife is upstairs getting ready for dinner, and I pretended that I hadn't just seen evidence that my entire life was built on deception. When Tara came downstairs 20 minutes later, hair damp and smelling like her vanilla body wash, wearing comfortable clothes and a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, I was plating the pasta like nothing had happened. "Smells good," she said, sliding into her usual seat at our small dining table. "Thanks." I set a plate in front of her and took my own seat across from her. The table suddenly felt miles wide. We ate in near silence. She scrolled through her phone between bites, occasionally showing me something meaningless, a funny video, a friend's vacation photo, news about a celebrity I didn't care about, normal dinner conversation, or the ghost of what normal dinner conversation used to be. I watched her and wondered when she'd become such a good liar. Or had she always been this way, and I'd just been too trusting to notice? "How was work?" I asked at one point, more to break the silence than because I genuinely wanted to know. "Fine. Boring meeting that could have been an email. The usual." She twirled pasta around her fork without looking at me. "You?" "Same. Grant proposal is almost done." "That's good." And that was it. That was the extent of our connection. Polite surface-level exchanges that meant nothing and revealed nothing. We'd become roommates who occasionally shared a bed. After she went to bed that night, claiming she was exhausted from her long day at work, I stayed up. I sat in the dark living room with my laptop, the glow from the screen the only light, and I started my research. I learned things that night that I never wanted to know, things about surveillance and evidence gathering that made me feel dirty just for searching them. I read forums where betrayed spouses shared their stories and strategies. I learned about voice-activated recording apps and cloud storage systems. I learned about the legal implications of recording conversations in our state, single-party consent, meaning I could legally record any conversation I was part of, or any conversation that took place in my own home. Most importantly, I learned that if I was going to do this, if I was going to become a spy in my own marriage, I needed to be smart about it, methodical, patient. I couldn't let emotion drive my decisions. By 3 a.m, I had a plan. I would document everything, not just for divorce proceedings, though that was certainly part of it, but for myself. Because if I was wrong, if I was being paranoid and there was some innocent explanation for that text message, I needed to know. And if I was right, if Tara was cheating on me, I needed irrefutable proof before I blew up my entire life. The next morning, I started implementing my plan. I installed a voice-activated recording app on my old phone, the one I'd replaced last year but had kept meaning to recycle. I set it up in our home office, hidden behind some books on a shelf, positioned so it could pick up conversations in the living room and kitchen. The app would automatically start recording when it detected voices and upload everything to a secure cloud account I'd created specifically for this purpose. I felt like a criminal setting up the recording. My hands actually shook as I positioned the phone and tested the audio quality. This was wrong, wasn't it? Spying on my wife in our own home? But then I remembered that text message, and my hands steadied. If she had nothing to hide, I'd find nothing. If she did, well, then I wasn't the one who'd crossed the line first. The recordings started that Friday. At first, they were mundane to the point of being mind-numbing, hours and hours of nothing. Tara talking to herself while getting ready for work, the sound of the coffee maker, her on phone calls with coworkers about projects and deadlines and office politics that meant nothing to me, the TV playing in the background, normal domestic sounds that made me feel increasingly guilty for even listening. I spent entire evenings with headphones on, listening at double speed to conversations about grocery lists and dentist appointments. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was paranoid and destroying our marriage with suspicion and mistrust. Maybe that text message had been about something innocent, and I was manufacturing drama where none existed. Then came the first week of September, and everything changed. It was a Saturday afternoon. Tara had gone out to run errands, which she said would take maybe an hour. 3 hours later, she still wasn't home. I was starting to get concerned, wondering if I should call her to make sure she was okay, when I decided to check the recordings from earlier that day. There was a long file from the morning before she left. Most of it was silence and ambient noise. But then, around 11 o'clock, voices, Tara's voice, and a male voice I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding before I even understood what I was hearing. They must have come to the house while I was out doing my own errands. The recording had picked them up in the living room, crystal clear. "Are you sure he won't be back soon?" the male voice asked. Young-sounding, confident. "He's grocery shopping. He takes forever. We have at least an hour." Tara's voice was different than I'd ever heard it. Lighter, flirtatious, excited. "An hour, huh? What should we do with all that time?" The tone was suggestive, playful. Tara laughed, actually giggled. "I can think of a few things." I stopped the recording. My hand was shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. I sat there on the edge of our bed, in the bedroom we'd shared for 6 years, staring at the wall and trying to breathe through the crushing weight on my chest. Part of me wanted to stop listening right there, to delete the file and pretend I'd never heard it, to go back to the comfortable ignorance of not knowing for certain. But I couldn't. I had to know. I restarted the recording. What followed was 45 minutes of the most painful listening experience of my life. Not because it was explicit. The recording was distant enough that most of what happened was mercifully unclear, but because of the conversation that came after. They were in my living room, on my couch, and they were talking about me. "Does he suspect anything?" the man asked. "No, he's completely clueless." Tara's voice was casual, dismissive. I could tell him I was at my sister's house and he'd believe me without question. He's not exactly the suspicious type. "Don't you feel bad? I mean, he's your husband." "Sometimes, but honestly, Derek, he's just so boring. We have the same conversations every day, same meals, same routine, same everything. I feel like I'm suffocating." "Derek." So now I had a name. "So why not just leave him?" Derek asked. "Because it's complicated. The house, our finances, both our names on everything, plus his feelings. He's a nice guy, you know? He doesn't deserve to be hurt. I need something more than what he can give me." "But you're okay with cheating on him?" "I'm not okay with it, but I'm also not okay with spending the rest of my life in this mediocre marriage, pretending I'm satisfied when I'm not." I listened to my wife explain to her lover how our marriage was mediocre, how I was boring, how she was essentially staying with me for convenience while getting her excitement elsewhere. And the worst part? She said I was nice, that I didn't deserve to be hurt, as if that made the betrayal somehow less awful. I listened to the entire recording 3 times. Then I saved it to my cloud storage, labeled it with the date and a brief description, and added it to what would become a growing catalog of evidence. That was the first real proof, but it was far from the last. Over the next few weeks, I collected more recordings. Some were just Tara on the phone with Derek, planning their next meeting. Others were longer conversations, either at our house when she thought I was gone, or captured on her phone when she'd leave it lying around near my recording device. I learned things I never wanted to know about my wife, about how she really felt about our marriage, about me, about our life together. Every recording was another small death, another piece of the person I thought I knew revealed to be fiction. But then, 3 weeks into my surveillance, I caught something I never expected. It was a Tuesday evening. I'd gotten home from work early and was in the office uploading a recent recording when I heard the doorbell. Through the walls, I heard Tara answer it and greet someone warmly. "Mara, what are you doing here?" Mara, Tara's older sister, the woman who had made my life a subtle misery since the day we met. I stayed in the office, not wanting to deal with whatever criticism Mara had brought with her today. The recording device in the living room would catch their conversation anyway. Later that night, after Mara had left and Tara had gone to bed early claiming a headache, I listened to what had been said, and what I heard changed everything. The conversation had started normally enough. Sisters catching up, talking about work and parents and mundane family gossip. But then it shifted to me and to Tara's affair. "So how's it going with Derek?" Mara asked, not shocked, not disapproving, just casually curious, like she was asking about a hobby. "Good. Great, actually. He makes me feel alive again. I'm happy for you, honestly. You deserve better than what you have." "I feel guilty sometimes," Tara admitted. "He's not a bad person. It was a Saturday afternoon. Tara had gone to run errands, which apparently meant sitting in her car in the grocery store parking lot for 40 minutes talking to someone named Derek. The audio quality wasn't perfect, but it was clear enough. "I can't keep lying to him," Tara said, her voice strained. "Every time he looks at me, I feel like he knows." "He doesn't know anything," a male voice responded. "If he did, he would have said something by now. Guys like that always do." This is getting complicated. Mara keeps pushing me to just leave him, but it's not that simple." My blood went ice cold at the mention of her sister's name. Mara. Of course, Mara knew. Tara's older sister had always been a presence in our marriage, hovering like some kind of judgmental specter. From the moment Tara and I started dating, Mara made her opinions abundantly clear. I wasn't successful enough. I wasn't ambitious enough. I wasn't exciting enough for her precious little sister. At our wedding, during her maid of honor speech, she said, "Tara, you've always been the one who settled for safe. I hope this works out for you." Everyone laughed like it was a joke. I swallowed the humiliation and smiled. Over the years, the comments never stopped. At every family gathering, Mara found ways to diminish me. Little jokes about my job, my clothes, my hobbies. "Oh, you're still doing that," she'd say with a pitying smile. "That's sweet." Tara never defended me, not once. She'd just change the subject or laugh along, as if agreeing with her sister was easier than supporting her husband, and now I knew why. Mara wasn't just undermining our marriage with words. She was actively encouraging Tara to cheat, to leave, to find someone better. I should have been angry. Instead, I felt this strange, cold calm settle over me. Knowledge is power, they say. And now I had knowledge. The question was what to do with it. I kept recording. Every day, new conversations, some damning, some innocuous. I organized them all in a secure cloud folder, time-stamped and labeled. Tara talking to Derek about hotel rooms. Tara complaining to her friend about how boring I was. Tara laughing with someone about how easy it was to manipulate me. But then I caught something I never expected. It was late one Tuesday evening. My recording app had been running all day, catching mostly silence and ambient noise. I was about to delete the file when I heard a voice I recognized, but it wasn't Tara's. It was Mara. She must have come over while I was at work. The audio was distant, probably from Tara's phone lying on a table, but clear enough. "God, I needed this," Mara's voice said. "Do you know how hard it is pretending to be perfect all the time?" "Tell me about it," another voice responded. Male, not Mara's husband, Brian. I'd known Brian's voice for years. This was someone else. "Brian is so suspicious lately," Mara continued. "I think he's been checking my texts." "So delete them." "I do, but I don't know. He's been weird, asking about where I go, who I'm with. It's exhausting." "Maybe you should just tell him," Mara laughed, sharp and bitter. "Are you insane? Do you know what would happen to me if anyone knew I was sleeping with a married coworker? My whole perfect life would collapse. My parents, my friends, everyone thinks I'm this ideal wife. I can't let them know the truth." I replayed that recording 7 times, making sure I heard correctly. Mara, the judgmental, holier-than-thou sister who never missed an opportunity to criticize my marriage, was having an affair. The woman who mocked me for being forgettable was sneaking around with a married man. The hypocrisy was so thick I could choke on it. I saved that recording, and then I kept listening. Over the next few weeks, I collected more. Mara coming over to vent to Tara about her affair. Mara complaining about her own husband while simultaneously criticizing mine. Mara making cruel jokes about me, calling me pathetic, saying things like, "I don't know how you stand him, and you deserve so much better than that." By the time Tara announced the family dinner, I had 42 recordings of Mara, each one more damning than the last, each one revealing a woman who was everything she accused others of being. I spent 3 days deciding whether to use them. Those 3 days were some of the strangest of my life. I went through my normal routine: work, errands, cooking dinner, watching TV with Tara in companionable silence, all while carrying the weight of what I knew. It was like being an actor in a play where only I knew the script was about to change dramatically. The ethical part of my brain screamed that this was wrong, that exposing Mara's secrets to humiliate her was cruel, vindictive, beneath me, that I should take the high road, confront Tara privately, handle this like an adult instead of weaponizing information for revenge. But the wounded part of my heart remembered every insult, every dismissive comment, every time I sat at a family dinner and endured Mara's subtle mockery while my wife said nothing. While my wife smiled and nodded along, as if agreeing with her sister was easier than supporting her husband. I thought about all the times Mara had made me feel small, the way she'd look me up and down when I arrived at family events, her eyes critical and finding me wanting, the comments about my clothes, my car, my job, my hobbies. "Still doing that?" she'd say with a pitying smile. "That's sweet." I thought about the time she'd cornered me at Tara's birthday party 2 years ago, when I was already feeling out of place among Tara's successful friends and accomplished family. "Can I give you some advice?" Mara had said, drink in hand, voice syrupy sweet. "You should really think about being more ambitious. Tara deserves a husband who's going places, not someone who's comfortable staying still." I'd mumbled something noncommittal and escaped to the bathroom. where I'd stood staring at my reflection and wondering if she was right. If I was holding Tara back, if I was as mediocre as Mara implied. Now I knew the truth. Mara wasn't concerned about my ambition or Tara's happiness. She was projecting her own dissatisfaction onto me, making me the target of all her self-loathing and frustration with her own life. I thought about Brian too, Mara's husband, a decent guy who'd never been anything but polite to me, who probably had no idea his wife was cheating on him, who might be going through the same slow realization I'd had, noticing small changes and dismissing them, trusting when he should be investigating. Did he deserve to know? Absolutely. But was it my place to tell him? That was more complicated. On Thursday, 2 days before the dinner, I made a decision. I transferred my favorite recordings to my old phone, the one I'd been using to collect evidence. I charged it fully, tested the audio quality, and placed it in my jacket pocket where it would stay until Saturday. I wasn't sure yet if I'd use it, but I wanted the option. I wanted to be prepared. Because I'd learned over the past 3 months that being unprepared was how people like me got hurt. Being too trusting was how we ended up as punchlines in other people's conversations. Friday passed in a blur of ordinary activities. Tara seemed nervous, checking her phone constantly, texting someone, probably Mara, probably planning whatever humiliation they had in store for me. I pretended not to notice. I'd gotten very good at pretending over the past few months. That night, as we lay in bed in the darkness, Tara spoke. "Tomorrow might be a little awkward," she said quietly. I didn't respond immediately, letting the silence stretch out. Then, "Why?" "Just family stuff. You know how Mara can be." "I do know how Mara can be." "Just try to ignore her if she says anything. You know she doesn't mean it." That was rich. Tara defending her sister's behavior while simultaneously acknowledging it would happen, asking me to tolerate abuse because that was easier than telling her sister to stop. "I'll handle it," I said. "Thank you." She rolled over, turning her back to me. "I know you don't love family dinners, but it means a lot to my mom that we're all there." I stared at the ceiling in the dark, listening to her breathing slow as she fell asleep. She had no idea what was coming. None of them did. Saturday arrived with perfect autumn weather. Sunny, crisp, the kind of day that belonged in a commercial for family togetherness. I dressed carefully that morning, choosing the outfit I knew Mara hated the most, a plain blue sweater she'd once called aggressively boring, and khakis that she'd said made me look like someone's disappointing dad. If this was going to be a performance, I might as well commit to the role they'd cast me in. Tara emerged from the bathroom fully made up, wearing a dress that was slightly too formal for a family dinner. She looked beautiful and distant, like someone I used to know a long time ago. "Ready?" she asked, checking her reflection one more time. "As I'll ever be?" The drive to her parents' house took 30 minutes. 30 minutes of Tara's anxious energy filling the car while I drove in calculated calm. She kept checking her phone, typing messages, deleting them, typing again. Her leg bounced continuously. She was nervous about something. Good. She should be. "You okay?" I asked at one red light, keeping my voice neutral. She jumped slightly, like I'd startled her out of deep thought. "What?" "Yeah, fine. Just, you know how my family can be." "I do," I said, keeping my eyes on the road. "I really do. They can be a lot, especially Mara, but she means well. She wants the best for everyone." "Does she?" I let the question hang there. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing, just thinking out loud." Tara gave me a suspicious look, but didn't push further. The light turned green, and we continued driving, each of us lost in our own thoughts about what the evening would bring. We arrived at her parents' house at 6 o'clock sharp, the large colonial with the perfect lawn and the matching seasonal wreaths on the door. Everything about the place screamed, "Appearances matter," which made sense given the family inside. The house itself was like Mara, immaculate on the outside, hiding dysfunction within. I parked on the street behind what I recognized as Brian's car, so they'd arrived early. Of course they had. Mara always arrived early to establish dominance, to be the one greeting newcomers rather than being greeted, to control the social dynamics from the start. Tara checked her makeup one more time in the visor mirror, took a deep breath, and opened her door. "Let's get this over with." Interesting choice of words. Let's get this over with. Not, let's have a nice evening, or it'll be fun to see everyone. She was dreading this too, which meant she knew something I was supposed to find unpleasant was coming. I followed her up the walkway, my hand instinctively checking that the phone in my jacket pocket was still there. It was, fully charged, audio files ready, my insurance policy against whatever the evening had in store. Tara's mother, Patricia, opened the door with her camera-ready smile. There you are. Come in, come in. Mara and Brian are already here. Of course they were. The house smelled like roasted chicken and vanilla candles. Classical music played softly from hidden speakers. Everything perfect, everything curated, everything designed to project an image of sophisticated family life. Patricia had probably spent all day preparing, making sure every detail was just right. Tara's father, Robert, stood by the fireplace in his standard uniform of khakis and a polo shirt, nursing a scotch and discussing something with Brian. Probably stocks or real estate or some other topic they found mutually interesting. They looked up as we entered, both offering polite nods. And there, perched on the sofa like a queen on her throne, was Mara. She looked exactly like I expected. Perfectly styled blonde hair that probably took an hour to achieve that effortless look. Designer dress that cost more than my monthly car payment. Expensive jewelry that caught the light just so. Everything calculated to broadcast success and superiority. Everything a carefully constructed lie. When her eyes landed on me, her smile turned sharp. I could see the anticipation there, the barely contained eagerness to begin whatever game she'd planned for tonight. "Oh, good. You made it," she said, standing up with her wine glass. "I was worried you'd gotten lost or something." First shot fired, implying I was incompetent enough to get lost driving to a house I'd been to dozens of times. "GPS is a wonderful thing," I replied neutrally. "Is it? I wouldn't know. I have a good sense of direction." She sipped her wine, eyes glittering with barely concealed disdain. "Love the sweater, by the way. Very... you." Second shot, criticizing my outfit while pretending to compliment it. Classic Mara. "Thank you," I said simply. "I wore it specifically because I knew you'd mentioned it before." Her smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. That wasn't the response she expected. She wanted me to look uncomfortable, to tug at my sweater self-consciously, to give her the satisfaction of landing a hit. There was a brief, awkward silence before Patricia jumped in with hostess energy. "Let me get you both something to drink. Wine? Beer? We have that IPA you like." "Water is fine for me," I said. "Water?" Mara laughed. "Come on, live a little. It's Saturday night." "I'm living exactly as much as I want to," I replied evenly. Tara shot me a warning look. She could sense that something was different about my mood tonight, that I wasn't rolling over quite as easily as usual. That worried her. It should. Dinner was announced shortly after. Patricia had outdone herself, as always. The dining table looked like something from a magazine spread. China plates with gold trim, crystal glasses that caught the candlelight, cloth napkins folded into elaborate shapes. Everything perfect, everything designed to impress, everything false. We took our seats in what I realized was a very deliberate arrangement. Me and Tara on one side of the table, Mara and Brian directly across from us. Robert and Patricia at the heads. The positioning felt strategic, like we were opposing teams rather than family, which, I supposed, we were. I sat down and felt the phone in my jacket pocket press against my side. Still there, still ready. Brian caught my eye and nodded. He looked tired, I realized. There were dark circles under his eyes that he'd tried to cover with makeup. Yes, makeup, I could see it if I looked closely. His smile didn't reach his eyes. He looked like a man going through motions, playing a role he was exhausted by. Did he know? Had he figured out what Mara was doing? Or was he still in the blissful ignorance stage, sensing something was wrong, but unable to name it? I felt a flash of sympathy for him. We were in similar positions, him and I, husbands of sisters who'd decided we weren't enough, men who were convenient, safe, boring, men who paid mortgages and made life stable while our wives sought excitement elsewhere. The difference was I knew the truth, and soon he would too. The first course was served. Salad with pears and goat cheese and some kind of candied walnut that Patricia was probably very proud of. Light conversation about work, weather, upcoming holidays. Safe topics that required minimal investment. Patricia asked about my job, and I gave the standard update about the grant proposal I'd been working on. Mara made a small noise that might have been meant to sound interested, but came across as dismissive. "Still working on that?" she asked. "I thought you'd finished that months ago." "Different grant. Different project." Must be nice to have so much time for each individual project. In my field, we're juggling 15 things at once. There it was. The implication that my work was somehow less demanding, less important. That I had the luxury of slow, careful work because what I did didn't really matter. "Quality over quantity," I said mildly. "Is it, though?" Mara tilted her head. "Sometimes I think quality is just what people say when they can't keep up with the pace." Tara tensed beside me. Robert cleared his throat uncomfortably. But nobody said anything to stop Mara. They never did. Different fields have different demands, Brian offered weakly, trying to diffuse the tension. Of course, Mara agreed, patting his hand condescendingly. I'm just saying, ambition looks different in different people. The implication hung in the air. I lacked ambition. We moved on to the main course, Patricia's roasted chicken with herbs and garlic, roasted vegetables, some kind of grain dish that was probably quinoa. Everything plated beautifully, everything tasting like ashes in my mouth. Then the wine started flowing more freely. By the second bottle, Mara's filter had loosened significantly. She started telling stories about her latest work triumph, closing some major deal that would boost her profile in the company. Her recent vacation to the Amalfi Coast with Brian, though I noticed Brian didn't look particularly happy when she brought it up. Her new car, a luxury SUV that cost more than some people's annual salary. Every story was carefully crafted to highlight her success and, by extension, emphasize everyone else's mediocrity. It was a performance I'd seen dozens of times before, but tonight I was watching it with different eyes. Tonight, I knew the truth behind the performance. Some people are just satisfied with average, she said at one point, her eyes sliding over to me. Nothing wrong with that. The world needs average people, right? Someone has to be in the middle of the bell curve. Absolutely, I agreed, cutting my chicken with precise movements. How else would exceptional people recognize their own exceptionalism? You need contrast. Mara's smile faltered for half a second. She wasn't used to me engaging directly. Usually, I just let her comments slide past without response. Exactly, she recovered. It's all about relative comparison. Like, I look at my life and I can see all the ways I've pushed myself to achieve more, and then I look at... She gestured vaguely in my direction. Other choices people make, and I'm grateful I didn't settle. Tara's face was turning red. Whether from embarrassment for me or fear of where this was going, I couldn't tell. Patricia tried to redirect the conversation. So, you two, any exciting plans coming up? Any trips or projects you're looking forward to? Not really, Tara said quickly. Just work and the usual. The usual, Mara echoed with a light laugh. That sounds about right. You've always been good at routine, Tara. Comfortable, predictable, same as when we were kids. You'd order the same meal at every restaurant, take the same route to school every day. Consistency isn't a bad thing, I said. No, but it's not exactly exciting either, is it? Mara leaned back in her chair, wine glass in hand. Life should have some spontaneity, some passion, some spark. There was something in her tone, in the way she emphasized certain words, that made me wonder if this was rehearsed, if she and Tara had planned this conversation, this slow build-up to something bigger. What makes you think we don't have spark? I asked directly. Mara laughed, genuinely surprised by the question. Oh, come on. Look at you two. You're basically roommates who file joint tax returns. When's the last time you did something unexpected, something exciting? Mara, Patricia said, a note of warning in her voice. But it was weak, easily ignored. I'm just asking questions, Mara said innocently. Honest questions between family. Are they honest, though? I set down my fork and looked at her directly. Or are you projecting? The table went silent. Even the background music seemed to fade. Projecting? Mara's eyes narrowed. What's that supposed to mean? It means sometimes people criticize others for things they're actually struggling with themselves. It's a pretty common psychological defense mechanism. I'm not struggling with anything, she said coldly. My life is exactly what I want it to be. Is it? Yes. She said it with such force that it betrayed her. If her life really was perfect, she wouldn't need to insist so hard. Mara's doing great, Brian said, but his voice lacked conviction. We both are. Great. Another uncomfortable silence. Robert poured himself more scotch. Patricia stood to clear plates, probably grateful for an excuse to move away from the tension. Dessert arrived. Tiramisu, Patricia's specialty, served on delicate dessert plates with decorative mint leaves. More wine poured. The conversation grew louder, more animated as people tried to move past the awkward moment I'd created. Robert told a long story about a golf tournament. Brian talked about a new client at his firm. Normal family dinner things, everyone desperately reaching for normalcy after the tension. But Mara wasn't done with me. I could see it in her eyes, the way she kept glancing over, waiting for her moment. She'd been slighted, called out, and she needed to reestablish dominance. She needed to put me back in my place. And as the wine flowed and her inhibitions lowered, she grew bolder. You know what I love about family dinners? She said suddenly, interrupting Robert mid-sentence. The honesty. We can say things to each other that we can't say to anyone else. Mara, Tara said quietly, a warning. What? It's true. We're family. We should be able to be real with each other. She turned to face me fully. Can I be real with you for a moment? I don't think you could stop yourself if you tried, I said. She smiled, but it wasn't kind. Fair point. Okay, here's real. I worry about my sister. I worry that she's wasting her best years on someone who doesn't appreciate what he has, someone who's content with mediocrity when she deserves excellence. Mara, stop, Tara said, more forcefully this time. But Mara was drunk enough now that stopping wasn't an option. I'm just saying what everyone's thinking, what we've all been thinking for years. She could have done so much better. She could have had anyone, and instead... Instead what? I asked calmly. Instead, she chose safe. She chose boring. She chose someone who would never challenge her or excite her or push her to be more than she is. The words hung in the air like a slap. Patricia gasped softly. Robert stared into his drink. Brian looked like he wanted to disappear into his chair. And Tara? Tara let out a small laugh. It was involuntary, I think, a nervous reaction to impossible tension. But it was there. A laugh. Agreement, or at least not disagreement. Confirmation that on some level she felt the same way. That laugh was the moment I made my decision. I reached slowly into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Every eye at the table followed the movement. What are you doing? Tara asked, voice tight with concern. I didn't answer. I unlocked the screen, found the folder I'd labeled Mara, and selected the first file. Then I placed the phone in the center of the table, right between the tiramisu and the wine bottles. What is that? Mara asked, but her voice had changed. There was uncertainty there now. Fear. I pressed play. For a moment, there was just static. Then Mara's voice filled the room, crystal clear and unmistakable. I can't keep seeing you at hotels like this. It's getting too risky. My husband is getting suspicious. The effect was instantaneous. Mara's face went from smug satisfaction to absolute horror in the span of a heartbeat. The color drained from her cheeks so fast I thought she might faint. What is that? She whispered. I let it play. Another voice, male and unfamiliar, responded on the recording. So what do you want to do? I don't know, Mara's voice continued. I can't let anyone find out. If my family knew I was sleeping with a married coworker, my entire life would fall apart. Everyone thinks I'm perfect. They have no idea. Brian stood up so fast his chair fell backward with a crash. The sound made Patricia jump. Robert's Scotch glass stopped halfway to his mouth. Mara reached for the phone. I pulled it back, letting the next message play. I swear to God, if anyone knew what I was really like, they'd be disgusted. Mara's recorded laugh was bitter, drunk. My family especially. They think I have it all together. They think I'm this perfect wife, this perfect sister. They have no idea I'm just as much of a mess as anyone else. Maybe more? Turn it off, Mara hissed, her voice shaking. She looked around the table desperately, seeing her carefully constructed image crumbling in real time. You can't... I played one more. Sometimes I hate them, my family. They're so judgmental, so quick to criticize everyone else. They think they're better than everyone. And the worst part? I'm exactly like them. Maybe that's why I hate them. We're all pretending to be something we're not. The silence that followed was deafening. Mara's face had gone through several color changes, white to red to a mottled purple. Sweat beaded on her forehead. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the table. Brian was staring at her like he'd never seen her before. You're having an affair? His voice was barely above a whisper. With someone from work? Brian, I can explain. A married man? He laughed, harsh and broken. You're sleeping with a married man while you sit here and judge everyone else? Patricia looked like someone had slapped her. Mara, is this true? Robert just kept shaking his head, his face grave with disappointment. Tara was staring at me with something like horror. Where did you get those recordings? I picked up my phone calmly, turning it off and sliding it back into my pocket. From your sister. She was very vocal about her opinions whenever she came over to our house. Remember all those times she visited when I was supposedly at work? I looked at Tara meaningfully. I was recording everything. You recorded us? Tara's voice was shrill. That's illegal. Actually, in this state, only one party needs to consent to being recorded. That would be me, in my house, where I have every legal right to record conversations. I'd done my research thoroughly. But don't worry, I have plenty of recordings of just Mara. 42, to be exact. Mara made a small sound, almost like a whimper. 42? Brian was on his feet now, pacing. How long has this been going on? Does it matter? I asked, keeping my voice level. The point is, your perfect wife has been living a double life while criticizing everyone else for their imperfections, including me, the forgettable husband who apparently deserved to be cheated on. How dare you? Mara finally found her voice, though it came out strangled. You have no right. No right? I stood up slowly, placing my hands on the table. You just told an entire room of people that I deserve to be betrayed because I'm not exciting enough. You've spent years making me feel small, worthless, beneath you. And the whole time, you were doing exactly what you accused me of. Worse, actually. At least I was honest about who I was. This is blackmail, Mara said desperately, looking at her parents. He's trying to blackmail me. I haven't asked you for anything, I pointed out. I just played some audio, your words, your choices, your hypocrisy. Brian grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. I'm leaving. Brian, wait. Mara reached for him. He jerked away from her touch. Don't. Just don't. He looked at me, and for a moment I saw something like gratitude in his eyes. Thank you for this. Really. Then he walked out, the front door slamming behind him. Mara burst into tears. Loud, gasping sobs that might have been convincing if I hadn't heard her fake cry a dozen times over the years. Patricia moved to comfort her, but even she seemed uncertain, her hand hovering over Mara's shoulder without actually touching. Robert drained his scotch and poured another. This is unacceptable. Which part? I asked. The affair? The hypocrisy? Or the fact that it was exposed at your dinner table? All of it, he said heavily. This whole evening is a disaster. It could have been avoided, I said simply. All Mara had to do was keep her mouth shut. But she couldn't help herself, could she? Had to get one more jab in. Had to make sure I knew my place. Tara finally spoke, her voice small. Can we just go? Sure. I pushed my chair back under the table politely. Thank you for dinner, Patricia. The tiramisu was excellent as always. The absurdity of the polite comment seemed to snap something in the room. Mara's sobs got louder. Patricia looked lost. Robert just stared into his drink. I walked toward the door. Behind me, I heard Tara scrambling to follow, apologizing to her parents in a rushed whisper. As I reached for the door handle, I heard footsteps running behind me. Mara's hand grabbed my arm, her face a mess of tears and ruined makeup. Delete them, she begged. Please. Delete the recordings. I'll do anything. I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. For years, this woman had made me feel worthless. Every family gathering, every phone call, every interaction had been designed to remind me that I wasn't good enough for her sister, for this family, for anyone really. Anything? I asked quietly. She nodded desperately. Yes, anything. Just please, don't let anyone else hear those. My career, my marriage, everything will be destroyed. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Next time you want to open your mouth about someone else's marriage, their worth, their choices, remember this moment. Remember how it feels to have your secrets exposed. Remember that words have consequences. So you'll delete them? I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. I didn't say that. I said, remember this moment. Her face crumpled. You bastard. Maybe, I acknowledged, but at least I'm an honest bastard. I walked out into the crisp October evening, leaving behind the chaos I'd unleashed. Behind me, I could hear raised voices, accusations, more crying. The perfect family facade had shattered, and I felt absolutely nothing about it. Just a cold, empty calm that felt strangely peaceful. The night air was sharp and clean after the suffocating atmosphere of that dining room. I stood on the front porch for a moment, breathing deeply, listening to the muffled sounds of the disaster unfolding inside. Through the window, I could see shadows moving, gesturing frantically. The perfect dinner party had become a crime scene, and I was walking away from it without a scratch. Tara caught up with me at the car, breathing hard, her heels clicking against the pavement. What the hell was that? I unlocked the doors. That was justice. Justice? You humiliated my sister in front of everyone. She humiliated me first, for years. You let her. I opened my door and looked at her across the roof of the car. Get in. We need to talk. Something in my tone must have told her that arguing was pointless. She got in, and we sat there in the car for a moment before I started the engine. Neither of us spoke as I pulled away from her parents' house, leaving the warm lights and raised voices behind us. The drive home was silent, except for Tara's occasional sniffling. I didn't know if she was crying for her sister, her family, her exposed affair, or herself. I didn't particularly care anymore. That part of me that cared, that wanted to comfort her and fix things and make everything okay, that part had died somewhere between discovering her infidelity and planning tonight's reveal. When we pulled into our driveway, neither of us moved to get out. We just sat there in the dark garage, the engine ticking as it cooled, both of us processing what had just happened and what it meant for our future. "Did you mean it?" Tara finally asked, her voice small and scared. "About the recordings of us?" I turned to look at her. In the dim light from the garage door opener, she looked young and frightened, like a child who'd been caught doing something wrong and was realizing that consequences were real. "About you cheating?" I said. "Yes. I have recordings of your conversations with Derek, with Mara, with your friends. I know everything, Tara. I've known for months." Her face crumpled. Tears started flowing freely now. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I wanted to be sure, and because some part of me kept hoping I was wrong." I stared at our house through the windshield, this place we'd built together that had become a prison of lies. But I wasn't wrong, was I? She didn't answer immediately. Her hands twisted in her lap, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, "No, you weren't wrong." The admission hung between us. There it was, the truth, finally spoken out loud in the space between us. No more pretending, no more careful lies, no more elaborate deceptions, just the bare, ugly reality of what our marriage had become. "I want a divorce," I said calmly. "I have enough evidence to make it very straightforward. We'll divide assets fairly, and we'll both move on with our lives." "Just like that?" Her voice turned bitter, defensive. "After everything." "After everything?" I almost laughed, but it would have come out wrong. "Tara, there is no everything left. You cheated. Your sister mocked me for being cheated on while she was doing the same thing to her husband. Your family laughed. Whatever we had died a long time ago. Tonight was just the funeral." "You're not innocent in this," she said suddenly, angrily. Her tears had stopped, replaced by that defensive anger I'd seen so many times over the past months. "You were cold, distant. You never wanted to do anything exciting. You were happy just existing, living the same day over and over." "So you cheated because I was boring?" I nodded slowly, taking it in. "That's honest, at least. Most people would try to justify it more, make it about emotional neglect or growing apart or some other euphemism. But you're just admitting it. I didn't excite you, so you found someone who did." "I'm not saying it was right," she backpedaled, probably realizing how callous she sounded. "I'm just saying you weren't perfect either. You stopped trying. You stopped seeing me." "I stopped trying because every time I tried, you shut me down. I suggested trips. You were too busy. I planned dates. You were too tired. I tried to talk about us. You said I was being needy." My voice was calm, factual, empty of the emotion I should probably be feeling. "You didn't want me to try, Tara. You wanted me to fade into the background so you could do what you wanted without guilt." She opened her mouth to argue, then closed it, because she knew I was right. We both knew I was right. Pack a bag," I said, opening my door. "Stay with your sister, your parents, Derek, whoever. I don't care. But I want you gone by tomorrow. This is my house too, and you'll get your share in the divorce. But tonight, I need you gone. I need space to think without you here." I walked inside without waiting for her response. Behind me, I heard her crying in the car, her sobs echoing in the enclosed garage. But I didn't stop. Couldn't stop. If I stopped, if I let myself feel anything right now, I might break down completely. And I'd done enough breaking over the past 3 months. Tonight wasn't about breaking, it was about finally putting myself back together. Inside, I went upstairs to our bedroom and started pulling out suitcases from the top of the closet. Tara's suitcases, the ones she'd used for her supposed business trips that were probably actually rendezvous with Derek. The irony wasn't lost on me. An hour later, Tara came inside. She moved through the house like a ghost, collecting clothes and toiletries without speaking. I could hear her in different rooms, opening drawers, closet doors, crying quietly. At one point, she stood in the bathroom doorway, watching me fold one of my shirts that had somehow ended up in her laundry basket. "I'm sorry," she whispered. I continued folding. "I know." "Do you hate me?" I thought about it honestly. Did I hate her? I searched my feelings and found mostly emptiness. "No, I don't hate you. I'm just done." "Done." She repeated the word like she was tasting it, trying to understand its full meaning. "Just like that? 6 years of marriage and you're just done?" "Just like that," I confirmed. Because those 6 years, apparently they meant different things to each of us. I thought we were building a life together. You thought you were settling for safety while keeping your options open. Those aren't compatible visions. She nodded, tears sliding down her face, and continued packing. She moved mechanically, grabbing things without really looking at them, stuffing them into bags without her usual care for organization. She just wanted to be done, to be gone, to escape the uncomfortable reality of this conversation. By 10 o'clock, her car was loaded with enough clothes and essentials for at least a week. She stood by the driver's door, keys in hand, looking back at the house like she was memorizing it, or maybe saying goodbye to it, to the life we'd built, or thought we'd built. "Where will you go?" I asked, not because I particularly cared, but because it seemed like the thing to say. "A hotel, I guess. I don't want to face my family right now. After what you did?" "After what I did?" I interrupted. "Don't rewrite history already. After what you and Mara did, after your choices, after your decisions, I just made sure the truth came out." She bit her lip, wanting to argue, but knowing she couldn't. "I'll call you tomorrow, about arrangements. My lawyer will contact you." "You already have a lawyer." "I've had a lawyer for 6 weeks. I've been preparing for this conversation for months, Tara. Did you really think I'd catch you cheating and not plan for the inevitable?" She looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. Like the person standing in front of her was a stranger wearing her husband's face. "I don't even know who you are anymore. I could say the same about you, but the truth is, I think this is who we've always been. We just stopped pretending." She got in her car without another word. I watched from the front window as her taillights disappeared down our street, probably for the last time as my wife. Tomorrow, she'd be my ex-wife-to-be, and eventually, she'd just be someone I used to know. I locked the door, turned off all the lights, and sat in the dark living room alone. The house felt different already, emptier, but also lighter, like a weight had been lifted, leaving behind only the echo of where it used to press. My phone buzzed, text messages flooding in like a dam had broken. Brian thanking me profusely for exposing Mara. Patricia demanding I apologize and delete the recordings. Robert saying we needed to talk man to man about the situation. Friends and extended family who'd apparently already heard about the dinner disaster through some lightning-fast gossip network. I turned off my phone and closed my eyes, letting the darkness and silence wrap around me. People say revenge is hollow, that it doesn't actually make you feel better, that it leaves you empty and unsatisfied, that the satisfaction is fleeting and ultimately meaningless. And maybe they're right. Maybe I should have felt some triumphant vindication, some gleeful satisfaction at seeing Mara's perfect facade crumble. But I didn't feel triumphant or satisfied. I just felt tired. Tired of pretending. Tired of swallowing insults. Tired of being the punchline to someone else's joke about my own life. Tired of being the accommodating husband who never made waves, never complained, never stood up for himself. But I also felt something else. Something lighter. Something that might have been the early stirrings of hope. I felt free. The next morning, I woke up to 17 missed calls and 43 text messages, most from Tara's family, ranging from angry to pleading, a few from mutual friends who'd heard various versions of what happened, one from my lawyer saying we should meet soon, and one from Brian. "Can we meet for coffee? I'd like to talk." I stared at that message for a long time, then typed back, "Sure, tomorrow work?" His response was immediate. "Oh, yes, thanks." I spent the day cleaning. Not just tidying, but deep cleaning, washing windows, scrubbing floors, throwing out things that reminded me of Tara. Each bag of trash felt like shedding another layer of the person I'd been. That evening, on my newly cleaned porch with a beer, I thought about what Mara had said. No wonder she cheated. Look at you. She was right in a way, not how she meant it. Tara cheated because she could, because I made it easy, because I valued peace over respect. I had let myself become forgettable. But being forgettable and being worthless aren't the same thing. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. "Hello?" "It's Mara." Her voice was hoarse, raw from crying. "Please, I'm begging you. Delete those recordings. Brian left me. My parents won't talk to me. Everyone knows. My whole life is falling apart." I took a sip of beer, watching the sunset. "That sounds difficult. Is that all you have to say?" She laughed bitterly. "My marriage is over. My career might be over if this gets out at work. Everything I built is destroyed, and you don't even care." "You're right, I don't. How can you be so cold?" She was crying now. "I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry for everything I said. I was wrong. You didn't deserve it. Is that what you want to hear?" "What I want to hear is you taking actual responsibility instead of being sorry you got caught." I set down my beer. "You spent years tearing me down, making me feel worthless. And when your own hypocrisy got exposed, suddenly you're the victim? I made a mistake. No, Mara. A mistake is forgetting someone's birthday. What you did was build a pattern of cruelty while hiding your own worst behavior. That's not a mistake. That's a character flaw. So that's it? You're going to destroy my life as revenge? I'm not destroying anything, I said calmly. Your choices did that. I just stopped letting you get away with it. She was silent for a long moment. Then, what do you want? Money? I'll pay you to delete them. I don't want your money. Then what? What will it take? I thought about it. Nothing. There's nothing you can offer me. Because the point isn't to punish you, Mara. It's to make sure you can never hurt me again. And as long as those recordings exist, you'll think twice before opening your mouth. You're keeping them as insurance? She sounded horrified. Call it what you want. But yes, you stay out of my life, you keep your opinions about me to yourself, and those recordings stay private. Simple. That's blackmail? No, that's boundaries. Something you should have respected years ago. I stood up, ready to end this conversation. Goodbye, Mara. I hope you figure out how to be honest with yourself. For your sake, not mine. I hung up before she could respond. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, paperwork, and difficult conversations. Tara wanted to reconcile at first, sending long messages about how we could work through this, go to therapy, start over. But I was done. Some things, once broken, can't be fixed. The divorce was finalized remarkably quickly. No kids, shared assets split down the middle, no alimony for either party. Clean break. We'd been married for 6 years. It took 6 weeks to undo it. I heard through mutual friends that Mara and Brian were also divorcing, that Mara had quit her job to avoid scandal, that the family was going through a difficult time. I felt nothing about any of it. 3 months after the dinner, I ran into Patricia at the grocery store. She saw me, and I saw her face go through several emotions before settling on something like resignation. She approached carefully, like I might bolt. Hello, she said quietly. Patricia? I nodded politely, continuing to shop. How are you? Fine. You? She hesitated. We've been better. I wanted to... She took a breath. I wanted to apologize. For that night, for laughing, for not defending you. It was wrong. I looked at her, this woman who'd been part of my family for 6 years, and felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no sadness. Just a distant, polite indifference. I appreciate that, I said. Do you forgive us? She looked hopeful. I'm working on forgiving myself first, for staying in a situation where I wasn't valued. I put a box of pasta in my cart. But thank you for the apology. I walked away, leaving her standing in the cereal aisle. It wasn't cruel, it was just done. 6 months later, I moved to a different city for a new job. Better pay, better opportunities, and most importantly, no memories around every corner. I sold the house, split the proceeds, and started over. I dated casually, made new friends, discovered hobbies I'd abandoned, took up hiking, photography, learned to cook properly. I became someone I actually liked. About a year after the dinner, Brian messaged me. We'd met for coffee a few times, bonded by shared experience. He'd become something like a friend. Saw Mara today. She asked about you. What did you tell her? That you moved, that you seem happy. That's her problem, not mine. I looked around my new apartment. Small, modern, completely mine. No shared history, no ghosts, no reminders of who I used to be. People ask sometimes if I regretted what I did, if exposing Mara so publicly was too far. I understood the question. Society expects us to take the high road, to turn the other cheek. But sometimes the high road is just letting people walk all over you. Did I feel good about it? Not particularly. Did I regret it? No. That moment was the catalyst I needed to finally value myself enough to leave. Mara taught me that some people will never respect you unless they fear you. That being kind is noble, but being a doormat is not. That sometimes the only way to stop being the punchline is to become the one holding the mic. They wanted humiliation. I simply returned it to sender. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone else. It's refusing to let them destroy you. It's standing up and saying, no more. It's valuing yourself enough to walk away, even when they're family, even when it's easier to stay. I didn't forget, but I moved forward, and that was enough.